Happy New Year, everyone. Our mayor was a little under the weather, so he is not here today. And we're just going to go ahead and get started. Happy New Year to everyone, and Happy New Year. And first up on the agenda is the Caretaker's Cottage.
Thank you, Councilor President, members of the council. Good morning. Bradley Clark with Community Development. So I've got, for the incumbents, I apologize because there's going to be some repeat here for you folks. But we thought it was important to kind of set a little bit of the background and framework for the Riverside Caretaker's Cottage for the others. So the subject today is council consideration of the Riverside Park Caretaker's Cottage. And this is a request for expressions of interest, which we don't see a tool used all that often. It is distinguished from a request for proposal in that requests for proposals, have Oregon state rules and guidelines. There's a very kind of delineated outline for how RFPs operate. There's a lot more opportunity for the city, more flexibility in an RFEI. So I just wanted to clarify that distinction right up front because in terms of your prior conversations about RFPs, most of those, actually none of those rules really apply in terms of how we manage the process. The RFEI process was outlined in our document, and we do need to adhere to that, but in terms of the statutes, this is a very different tool. Two main goals that we're talking about today with the council, in economic growth and infrastructure, and exploring a private partnership to help preserve a deteriorating historic building. I think you're all probably familiar with the cottage. It's circled here. It's on East Park Street, has frontage on East Park Street. This is on the very south end of Riverside Park. And there is a driveway that you may have used that serves a fairly large parking lot behind it. We have a public restroom back there, and then the most of that building there is the maintenance yard for the Parks Division. So a little bit of that background that I was talking about, July of 23, we had the Historical Building and Sites Commission make a motion to the council, and they recommended that the Caretaker's Cottage, you'll sometimes hear it referred to as the Reed Building, get repair and maintenance. There's pretty significant deterioration that had been happening, and so they were concerned about that, and they made a motion to help to prevent any further deterioration. A key point there is that the park was added to the National Register of Historic Places back in 2020, I think, or 2021. And this is the oldest structure that is in Riverside Park, the oldest built structure. It dates to about 1920. And because this Caretaker's Cottage is part of the park, and the park is on the National Register, that basically, by consequence, means that the building is also on the National Register. So anytime the city or a county owns property that is on the National Register, there's a set of standards that we need to follow in terms of how you go about reviewing those buildings. You can't just go and demolish it. You can't just go and refurbish it without kind of going through some of those historic preservation guidelines. August to October, the City Council toured the property. There was a public open house. We did an online community survey. There was about 216 folks that participated in that. And here are the results of that survey. You can see at the top there about 75% or 160 people said to save it. And then we also asked, what do you think would be best uses for this building? And you can see those listed there on the bottom. The top one being use it for some kind of a museum or history center. Police security was listed up there. That was actually a prior use. Both of those top two uses were prior uses of the cottage. It was a residence for the caretaker of Riverside Park for about 30 years. And then, so that kind of put it into the late, like 60s, kind of right in there. And then it did become a museum at one point. It's had a couple of different uses, but you can see those outlined there, the results of the survey. So then in February 24, Council asked for additional cost estimates and potential grant resources. Another workshop in April where the Council reviewed cost estimates and then directed staff to get input from a historic preservation expert. George Kramer has provided those services to the city for many, many years, and he was the one that we contracted with. He went on site, spent a few hours there, did a very detailed assessment, and that assessment was actually attached to the request for interest. So that you could see the results of his analysis attached there on your materials. Two main outcomes, specific outcomes in that August workshop were to proceed with a asbestos and lead survey, and then to kind of ensure, kind of mothball the building to make sure that any additional heavy weather doesn't deteriorate it any further. The main thing there being the roof. The roof was in pretty poor condition. So our parks team did go out and did their best to clean off the roof. And we did get both a lead survey and an asbestos survey. Came back that there was lead, both interior and exterior. Very little asbestos though. January to February of this last year, I guess this 2025 is the last year now, RFEI drafted, and then we did put that on hold. At the time, there was concerns both from the Historical Building Sites Commission and a couple of councilors because of the impacts of homeless in the park, that it might not be the best time to go out and try to attract partners. So that was basically put on hold. Next few slides, just showing you the structure, gable type roof. It's got that clad wood siding on it. The original, I think, was about 720 square feet, had an addition put on later. So I think the total puts it a little under 1,000 square feet. It does have electric, it does have gas. There's two small bathrooms in the building. So you can see some of the deterioration that kind of drove the original recommendation to put some money into it. Here's a couple of sites from the interior. If you read George Kramer's report, you saw that there's really very little interior that is historic. Quite a bit of work has been done in there. It's got some older carpet, older doors, none of which are date to the 1920 building. July 2025, then we did publish it. We got two responses, one from a glass blower who proposed to have some concessions with his glass blowing, but he ended up withdrawing that application. And then the second was overnight lodging facility with yurts and a new restroom. So that we do have Bernie Woodward here today, and he's here to kind of give you a little more background on the project. September to October, then the RFEI review committee met to review the application. They did have a recommendation to council to support the yurt project. And again, the applicant on that is Elk Island Trading. Bernie Woodard is representing them. November of 25, we had discussions with Bernie about coordinating on the Riverside maintenance yard. So that was not really fully covered during the conversations with Mr. Woodard early on. There has been for a few years now a conversation internally about expanding Riverside Park maintenance yard. There's a lot of reasons we get to go into that, and Josh is here today, can give you more background, but one of the main drivers is that there isn't today an opportunity to pull vehicles with trailers into that area and then turn them around in sight. It's difficult to do that, so you kind of have to detach the trailers. And so the proposal would be to create more of a loop system, a driveway, so that you could circulate trucks with trailers and get through the maintenance yard, which you can't do today. So that would basically force an expansion of that yard in order to accommodate that. So we have not to date come to, between staff and Mr. Woodard, a layout configuration that would accommodate both his proposal for the yurts and accommodate the park's need for the expansion of the maintenance yard. So one clarification on that. So the RFEI, as it was published, was focused on the building. That was the original driver for the Historic Building and Sites Commission, was preservation of the structure. We honestly didn't anticipate any proposal coming in that would include use of the lawn that is adjacent to the building. So that was new. It wasn't like it was prohibited in the RFEI, but it was a new piece that was not really covered or anticipated when we published the RFI. So here is the proposed site plan that Elk Island put forward. You can see the caretaker's cottage here on the left, and then 6 yurts sited just to the east of the cottage building that have frontage. Well, one thing to be aware of here: the first asphalt that you see there is not the street. There's a detached pathway between the main part of Riverside Park and East Park Street. So there's kind of a landscape planting strip that separates those. So the proposal would be to site those behind that pathway. And then here's an example that was in their application showing kind of a 16-foot yurt, what that could look like. And the concept of a renovated cottage, you can see some new fencing, kind of 3 to 4 foot tall fencing around the cottage area with new kind of outdoor area to play chess or something else there, a new paint job and a new roofing. There's several improvements that are proposed there. So I mentioned the city's need for the maintenance yard. This is the concept plan that our Parks Division has created. So again, here's the cottage building here in the bottom left of the site. Today you come into the driveway, you come around the back side, and then you go through this existing gate. And then this is the common area in the maintenance yard, and then the maintenance shop building. So the proposal would be to expand out the fencing to the east, and then provide for another gate that would then provide kind of that circular movement that I was talking about to come in with areas with trucks and trailers to be able to maneuver those better. We also have 4 different areas in the bottom corner there where you would store things like gravel and soil and compost and other things. I think actually I already covered this slide. This is a clarification of the purpose. The purpose was really, focused on the building. We wanted to attract an investor, a partner with the city to help cover the cost to preserve the building. So there's the advertisement there that you can see on the bottom. And we did ask for detailed proposals. We didn't ask for any kind of architectural drawings or anything. This is very sort of high level to see, does the council have interest in moving forward with the proposal. So in terms of the policy side today, there's a couple of things staff's recommending the council focus on. The first really is on the municipal code. As you know, right now we do not allow overnight camping in public parks, and that is under Title VI, and that's 6.46.040. States that no person may live, sleep, or leave personal property in a park overnight, except in authorized resting sites. And then a resting site under today's code is city property or a portion thereof that has been specifically identified by council resolution or formal declaration of the city manager in emergency circumstances. So that language, as you probably know, was all really created around the unhoused homeless camping sites. That was the focus of where that language kind of originated from. We don't have any other language in the municipal code today that would kind of give, any guidance or direction to the staff in terms of whether to allow camping. So I think that's really number one. If you decide that, excuse me, if you decide that there is a good proposal here and you want to support the moving forward, then we would have to have a municipal code amendment to allow for the overnight lodging. Here's a few considerations as you move into that deliberation. What are the implications of a privately operated fee-based camping versus the unhoused camping? As I mentioned, that really hasn't gotten any discussion to this point. It was focused on the unhoused camping. Today, we do not have any such use in the city system. Josephine County Parks does, many state parks do. At this point, there is no allowance for that in the municipal park system. This would be a first. Potential conflicts with the existing no alcohol, no smoking codes. Right now, we do have language also that says no smoking, no alcohol in the public parks. What would be the impacts and the interface of permanent camping in proximity to other recreational uses, which are fairly close by there. There's some horseshoe pits that are fairly close, as well as some other rentable facilities. Impacts of yurts on parking and existing residences on East Park Street. I will point out that one of the members of the review committee, we actually had 2 Parks Advisory Committee members, 2 HBSC members, and 3 staff. That's the review committee composition. For the 2 Parks Advisory Committee members that were on there, they didn't, at that point, raise any concerns. But after the fact, at the December Parks Advisory Committee meeting, there were a few concerns raised. So that probably just needs a little bit more clarification. Mostly, we just need guidance from council on that. Pros and cons of upholding the adopted Muni Code camping prohibition. That's just kind of at a high level for you to think about. And then a potential code exception to allow overnight camping only in Riverside Park. So if if in your conversation you're thinking, well, maybe we do not want overnight camping in any city parks, but this might be an exception, then it's a local Muni Code, so it's your option to discuss how that could play out. So here are the 2 citizen committee recommendations or conversations I wanted to point out. There was a person that came to the HBSC meeting in September of 2025 with the Active Club. They did make a public comment at that meeting about expressing some interest in submitting. At that point, they missed the cutoff, so they were not able to submit a formal application to the city for the RFI, and we told them that it had already closed, so we need to continue on. So that's where we're at. It is we're continuing on with the RFI that was published, and today is kind of a continuing discussion on that. Parks Advisory Committee, Councilor King, who is the PAC liaison, raised the Caretaker's Cottage at their December meeting, and as I mentioned a minute ago, some of those members did express concern about allowing yurts. There was only 2 representatives on the committee, and the Parks Committee is comprised of, I think, more like 7 or 8. So in terms of cost implications, this is basically the money that the city's put forward to date. $4,500 to hire George Kramer for his evaluation, about $1,400 to Coleman Creek for the asbestos and lead paint survey, and then a small amount there for the publishing the RFI in the paper. So call to action, at council's discretion. Before proceeding with any discussion, we think it would probably be appropriate, up to the council president and the rest of the council, but to kind of make a decision at that high level about whether or not you support overnight lodging. But you also, as I mentioned, have Mr. Woodard here today to kind of explain in more detail what his proposal is. Some of the alternatives that we've put forward here, you could proceed to final negotiations with Elk Island Trading for their yurt lodging concept. As I mentioned earlier, that would have to involve a change to the municipal code first. Second, we could reissue the RFEI to solicit new partnership proposals. We could remand the topic to HBSC for more consideration from their side. Proceed with demolition. That does require a public hearing before that. You can place the topic on a future council workshop. We would ask for some specific topics to be identified today if you chose that option, or take no action. So that's what staff has for you. Many questions?
I see Rob.
Thanks, Brad. I forget the name of it, but there's a house in Reinhardt Park that the city rents out, correct?
There is two houses in
right?
Reinhardt. One is, kind of has had a more long-term residency to it. The other is the house that the city owns that we used to rent out for weddings and things, and that one's not occupied.
So because you stated that there's been absolutely no overnight lodging in any of our parks, but that's not 100% accurate, right? We do allow that in Reinhardt with that rental, right? We have lodging in Reinhardt Park with the house that we rent out there.
That is true. I mean, the way the Muni Code language that I put up words is referring to tents or, other sort of short-term man-made structures, not necessarily permanent houses or structures.
Okay, well, just, being clear, because it said absolutely no overnight stays or whatever, but you didn't really clarify the difference between somebody with a 6-foot tent and somebody with something more substantial. Thank you.
Good point. Thank you.
Kathleen?
So I would just be curious to know if there's any grants for historical remodeling.
So in August, I think it was, when we had the workshop where George Kramer came, this is his field of expertise. He did throw out a number of $100,000 that he thought might be a ballpark for a grant for a property like this that's on the National Register. Yeah. We have looked at both private foundations as well as the state of Oregon SHPO area, the State Historic Preservation Office. There certainly are some grants. We haven't pursued any of those. The one grant that we did get, which I think I failed to mention, there's a $15,000 grant that we already received that would be specific to architectural services, to help in the design of a reuse. So if you're doing an adaptive reuse of a historic structure, you can get that money. So we did solicit and we got that grant, but we haven't applied for any other until we know what the use is. You really can't apply.
But that would be something that could be done outside of just getting the building ready.
That's true. Yeah. We would need to know as the specific use, whether that's a city-owned building or, we'll continue to own the structure regardless. But yes, we would be able to do that.
Indra, and then Rick, and then I have a couple questions.
So I've stayed in a yurt, but it's been a while. Are they considered, they're not temporary, like you can't just pack it up and fold it away. Would these yurts be on a foundation or somehow on the ground to be semi-permanent, or what would they actually be termed, and as far as permanent, temporary?
Yeah, so here's the picture that I showed earlier. The word permanent and semi-permanent and temporary get a little bit squishy when we're talking about building code. generally, from a building code standpoint, it wouldn't be considered permanent because that, there's not a concrete foundation with ties coming up that would anchor it. Most of these, and Bernie may have better explanation, but they are elevated, and I think most of the time you see them on some kind of a deck base. So, would that deck then have, pylons or some other thing that would be attached to? I suppose that's possible, but generally, from a state building code standpoint, they would be considered temporary.
It seems like there may be an easy way to delineate a yurt structure from just a tent that you pop up. Is that true? Is there an easy way to separate those, or it would be confusing in code to do that?
It's a good point. Today, our Muni code kind of meshes it all together in terms of the tents and the yurts, sort of putting those together. Could we create language that would have standards for how the yurts are constructed, if that's where I hear you're going with your question? Yes, I think that's possible.
Okay, and maybe if that's the easy way to do it without being too restrictive, but yes, that's what I'm asking. Do you foresee a pretty simple way to change the code to separate those two? And it seems like the answer was yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad. So when we look at Reinhardt Park and you look at the overnight lodging that's there, isn't that really looked at differently because those were existing structures and weren't they grandfathered in when the park was created? So it avoided the issue of overnight camping, or?
That's correct, yeah. I think when both of the River Vista House and the other house that are there, unless Jason corrects me, but I think those were, when the park was developed, those were pre-existing.
So they would have avoided the issue of overnight through grandfathering?
Yeah, I do not know what kind of conversations occurred or didn't occur 30 years ago when the Mr.
Okay.
Reinhardt was, in the process of renovating. So I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, thank you.
Joel?
Thank you, Brad, for your presentation and your homework. So you put in your discussion and evaluation challenges. I didn't see any discussion of benefits, potential benefits. Are there any potential benefits associated with this proposal?
Well, certainly the ultimate goal of preserving the oldest structure in a National Register property is a positive thing. Having a building that is recognized and is certainly one of the oldest of that style, that cottage type, and has over 35 years of a caretaker living in it, and that's certainly a history to preserve. I don't think anyone questions that. I mean, I think, and my intent wasn't to not include those. I think those were portrayed in Mr. Woodard's application and in the HBSC original motion. I think the challenge from an administration standpoint right now is getting those two uses. Is there a way to get those to work? And so if you say proceed, then we'll take that back and figure that part out.
Sure, I understand that. So then costs of renovating the historic structure to the city. There was no mention of any costs. Are there any costs associated with that?
So in the request for interest, we did state that similar like you would have if we were a landlord, and we own the property like you would in a house, we committed to paying for the exterior, so the roofing, any foundation work, any new siding work. Those would be costs that the city would incur. Getting to Councilor Crone's question, we would likely pursue grants for that because at this point there is no general fund allocation to that, other than at a general level, the urban renewal money is there, it is available. I may have skipped over that. I apologize, I don't think I touched on that. So yeah, here's in terms of budget resources, LB 395 has a little over $390,000 of cash in it today. Those are for Riverside Park improvements, park maintenance shop and Reed building. So the maintenance shop would likely, take if we proceed with that project, all that. But that's again up to council. We do have 1.7 million of Riverside Park improvements, and then that $15,000 that I mentioned, and then the other grants. So that's where we're at. So, but to the heart of your question, yeah, there would be costs to the city unless there's some other negotiation that happens, and either Elk Island or some other partner is willing to cover the difference. Okay. But at this point, the way it's worded is we would partner from the city side with making those structural improvements to the building, and then they would be on the hook for all of the other interior.
Sure. Okay, so then the second question I had was, I don't see anywhere where you have the benefit of a revenue stream coming into the city.
Right. Well, until there's more conversation about, what that looks like in terms of revenue, I didn't want to include that because we don't have a specific. I think that might be a better question for Mr. Woodard in terms of what would that revenue stream look like. And
so the lodging tax would not apply, is that what you're saying?
I think well, we'd have to look into that. It's a good question. I think all of our other overnight lodging does have, as you mentioned, a tax, the overnight. Since we don't have any yurts currently in the city limits, I think we need to just look into that. But if we treated it like other lodging, then there would be the 12% that would apply.
Sure. So then the other benefit I was thinking of that wasn't mentioned, and I just ask your opinion. So like Dollar Mountain with mountain bikes and whatever. We got Hellgate Recreation. We got the river. There's a big, I wouldn't call it a big, but there's a community consciousness of outdoor recreation being one of the economic developments. And every visitor to Grants Pass generates income. And I don't know what the capacity of this would be, but at the outside, if you had a 80% usage or 60% usage, how many extra visitors would that give us?
Yeah, and I don't have an answer for that today.
But they do exist, correct? I mean, those benefits are real. We're not just talking about the challenges of doing it.
Oh, absolutely. You mean the benefit, the monetary benefits to the city of overnight lodging and the tourism?
Well, and then the economic benefits of visitor days, visitors coming to visit Grants Pass,
right.
along with the other amenities such as Dollar Mountain, and in a pristine, not Forest Service pristine, but a city pristine environment that is associated and adjacent to Hellgate River expeditions and the other recreational and tourism attractions of the area. Yeah. Well, there's estimates out there that, big range, but when you figure breakfast and dinners and paying for the lodging and then, any gas they purchase when they're here, I mean, there's all those estimates could likely be projected. What we, at this point, would probably need to have more information on is the estimate of those that are coming from out of town versus those that are in, already local that might want to use it for an event or something like that. Sure. Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
So You said that there were 2 committees who had reservations. Will you list those 2 committees again? Because I know it's in the packet, but which 2 committees kind of had some reservations about this?
Well, there weren't 2 committees, just the Parks Advisory Committee.
Oh, okay, Parks, a couple of people on the Parks
Right.
Advisory Committee.
Yep.
So they have some reservations.
They
Okay.
did at the December meeting express those, and maybe,
Oh, okay, I have a couple other questions,
Oh,
but,
do you want me to answer that? The first one? You want me to wait?
yeah,
You want me to wait?
yeah.
Okay.
And then, so I was concerned about that. And have the neighbors who are going to be living right across the street from this, have they been contacted about how there might be possible camping right across the street from them again?
we have not done any kind of notification of the neighbors at this point of this project. One of the committee members does live in that neighborhood that's across the street, who is on the Parks Advisory Committee, who kind of represented at the review committee that she thought there would kind of maybe be some overall positives to having, kind of a more permanent type lodging there. But no, we have not done any other outreach.
And have you done any other research about, because probably every county in Oregon has camping, but I don't know as though any cities do, maybe some do. Do you know of any of those, and have you looked into that?
I don't. I mean, Josh and I talked a little bit as our park superintendent. He's done a little bit of research, but did not identify any.
And then I wonder if Josh might come up and talk to us about possible impact on the park. Yeah.
I just want to add, there's been a good line of questions from Councilor King and yourself with regards to the camping aspect of this, and those questions are very valid. I think one of the reasons why we fully aren't able to provide answers to you is this project was focused on the Caretaker Cottage, and that's what the RFEI was. And by chance of responding to the RFEI, something new came up, and that is, hey, what about utilizing this space for camping, for yurts or something along those lines? If that was the original call of the RFEI, we'd have a lot of this already discussed. So if this is a aspect that council might think is this is just great, this is the best thing we've got, that's wonderful. But that is just a sliver of what we could potentially do with the property if you're opening it up to commercial use or camping use of some sort of fashion, where you may want to consider in the future maybe expanding this concept and getting a bigger picture of what could happen with camping in Riverside Park, if that's what you wanted to do with a new REFI that focuses on yurts or some kind of camping.
Well, I would not be interested in exploring this at all at this time, because we just don't know. We would need to talk to other cities to see. And I'm directly asking these questions because it speaks to changing our zoning. So, so I don't know if Josh had anything that he wanted to add to that.
Good afternoon, Josh Hopkins, Park Superintendent. I'm not aware of any other cities out there that have campgrounds like this in their system. I know of several municipalities that have special use type areas for like Cub Scouts and things like that, outside of town type of a thing, but nothing like in the interior of town. Many park systems have reservations for like community buildings and things like that, but not necessarily municipal campgrounds. I know several park systems out there that have had campgrounds historically, but they've all closed down and switched uses for whatever reason or another. Mostly when you see campgrounds, it's in the county park system because a lot of their funding comes from the state RV license fees, and they get paid per campsite, as well as state park systems because they also get that user fee as well. As far as potential impacts, again, it is kind of one of these things, it's a lot of the fear of the unknown situation. This really was focused on what can be done to preserve this building and not expand beyond the footprint of the building, and we're in this situation where the only real proposal came back expanding that. Our concern from a park maintenance staff perspective is on just the entire recreational atmosphere of our park system in this location. Having yurt camping right next to where we've got the Centennial Gazebo where people rent for weddings and other events like that can cause an impact on those reservations. Having this camping in an area that is currently where everyone's just walking by on our main thoroughfare through Park Street on that side can have a negative impact as well. Even operationally from parks perspective, we could see this creating a lot of complaints just surrounded around our general park maintenance, especially in the early morning hours in the summertime when we start up our mowers and everything around 6 a.m. So we see a lot of negative impacts coming from this. But again, we haven't had this before, so this is more like the anecdotal. This is what we perceive to happen because of our experiences in other places. I used to run campgrounds for Curry County Park System, and we had all those types of impacts. You know, campers complaining when we were mowing lawns and things like that all the time. Conflicts with campers, increased need for police presence, all that type of stuff. And even parking itself is another one of those impacts for this. That West Park Street is all, or East Park Street, is all permit parking. Our parking lot for the city parking lot for the parks are closed at night. So even if we allowed people to park there overnight, it creates kind of an enforcement issue for PD and knowing who's allowed to be in there and who's not, and may encourage more car camping in this location. So there's definitely a lot of impacts that could potentially happen because of this. And, you know, that's kind of what we're looking at, is more of the impacts for the overall just recreational atmosphere of that whole location.
Thank you. Joel?
So I'm the liaison to the Parks Committee. The one lady that expressed at the last meeting, she was concerned about coordination of the parking. That was her major concern. And Josh, if you want to chime in on that. And so if we proceed with that, we would have to have some kind of coordination with parking, along with coordination of the storage area for parks. There would just need to be some discussion and negotiation to make it happen and have both rather than just one or the other. The other thing, Josh, and again, you spoke very eloquently about the negative aspects. I didn't hear any of the positive aspects. And that's okay. That's okay. And whenever you have a new thing that's proposed, that's where we go first. Those worst outcomes. And if we stay there, they occur. We need to move past that to the best outcomes. So what would the best outcomes be of something like this? It would become an economic asset. The cottage would be preserved at a reduced cost to the city. It would provide a economic stream for the future. It would be part of our culture of Riverside Park and the historic nature of Riverside Park. And then the last question is, well, do we want those worst outcomes to occur, or do we want those best outcomes to occur? What do we need to learn if we want those best outcomes to occur?
Did you have a question?
So anyway, I needed to answer your question. She was mainly concerned with parking, and very appropriately so, and it would require some coordination.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Did you want to add to that then?
Yeah, so there were 2 members on the Parks Advisory Committee that were on the review committee for this project. At the December meeting, one of the members reported that she was pretty adamant that this project should be focused on the cottage itself and not expanding out beyond that. And the other member that does live in the area was concerned about the parking. So there were other concerns just about the idea of expansion out into the park and changing the entire flow of that. As far as positives, I think Brad kind of mentioned it. Yep, we have tourism lodging tax. This may be appropriate to get funding from. That's 12% that gets split up multiple different ways. As far as what that looks like coming back into the city, not very sure what it is for the city to actually get, because it gets split between tourism, DMO, some park improvements, some law enforcement, so that's kind of a minor type of a thing overall. Potentially, there's some positive impacts from having a lease agreement in place and getting a monthly lease income that will likely just go back into the general fund. But again, I don't know what level that lease is going to be at this point because we haven't had those types of conversations. And those are about it. Professional opinion as someone that's managed multiple types of park systems for the last decade, the negative impacts outweigh the positives.
Other questions? Rob?
Brad, on the cost implication slide, slide 21, you mention, or it mentions, I should say, it's listed, URA 1.7 million Riverside Park improvements. So when you say Riverside Park improvements, is that kind of maintenance stuff like new turf for a field, or would that be some new endeavor in a park, or either? What's that earmarked for?
Yeah, the URA plan doesn't go into a whole lot of detail on it. I think some of the old Isaac Walton building, knowing, when this was developed, it had already been demolished. I do think was, if you kind of read the tea leaves a little bit, in the background to the urban renewal plan was there on folks' minds. So some other kind of, semi-replacement for the Isaac Walton, which would, you could argue that this might be a part of that if it's a place where people can rent and, use for other types of uses. It's certainly not going to be dancing and some of the other things that happened to Isaac Walton. But I think that the word improvements it also came through in the urban renewal plan. So this would be more kind of focused on maintenance, keeping the parking lots upgraded. There's quite a bit of parking inside Riverside Park. But at this point, you as the urban renewal board would have a lot of opportunity to kind of direct those resources.
So, okay, so potentially costs that might be involved that would fall to the city for this project could likely come out of the URA fund. And then as far as replacing those funds for parking lot maintenance and so forth, without having details in front of me, we would potentially be having an ongoing income stream from this. We didn't really go into what the arrangement might be between Mr. Woodard and the city. So I really don't know what we're talking about, but I imagine there's some kind of, or I've heard that there's some kind of income stream potential that could then, I guess, be used for some of those other, maintenance issues in the park. Would there not be?
No, I think that's accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. If you as council give us direction today to proceed, I think what would have to happen is we'd go back and have some more conversations. He's going to prepare some more detailed economic analysis, say here's what these could rent for, here's my projected annual revenue stream. He included kind of a high level in the response, but in order to really understand what that dollar amount is that we annually would come to the city, I think those conversations we really still need to have.
So Mr. Woodard's here, I guess, today for a reason, because he could have just watched it on his computer. Do we have either from him or any idea as to what kind of, what the financial plan for this would be and what kind of income stream could potentially be? He must have an idea of what, I'm not even sure what he's thinking of with this plan, but he must have an idea if he's thinking of renting these out as an Airbnb or whatever he's planning on, what kind of, what it would take for it to turn a profit for him. What kind of income is the city potentially looking at with this project? What, again, getting back to Joel's question, benefits, well, what long-term income stream would we end up with here? Maybe Mr. Woodard has some ballpark idea of that, or maybe you do. It doesn't seem like you do, but I'd like to know that if there's somebody in the room that can answer that.
Yeah, I think that's best directed towards Mr. Woodard.
Then I'd like to direct it to Mr. Woodard.
Happy New Year. This is a real unique project, and I've been involved with restoring historic buildings all over the place, from churches to schools to, this is the first Caretaker Cottage. But there's always you always get the historical significance of a building, and you get a certificate sitting somewhere on the outside of it or the inside. But the problem is you can throw a lot of money into a building, and then if you don't change the purposes, like right now, you go over there and it's just a storage building, there's, it's unsightly to the community, the maintenance of it, those kind of things, it's not a very attractive thing for the community. What we have an opportunity for now is through this project, and Brad, thanks for all the comments. We got to the point of like, okay, is this part of the request for information? And so what I believe is that every time you restore a historic building, if you don't have a repurpose for it in mind and getting ready to do it, then 5 years from now or 10 years from now, you guys will put the same money back into renovating it. So you should renovate it unless you have a reason and a possible revenue stream. That revenue stream, as I looked at it, I'm like looking at the park and saying, wow, this is a beautiful park and it's a beautiful area. The river is right back behind there. There's so many tourists that want to come to this area. It's like, okay, now how do we get tourists to come right there into the park? And yeah, we have different times a year that there's a lot of people in there, but how can we get people there all year long? And it's like, it's renovating this Caretaker Cottage, utilizing the significance of it as a historical asset of the community that was the caretaker of that park. In 1920, I think the building was built. So over 100 years is like reinventing that now and saying, okay, now we have the Caretaker Cottage. We could go in there and we could put $300,000, whatever the number would be, into renovating it, but then you're back to doing the same thing. So I'm like, how can we make something happen for Grants Pass? And that's through this Airbnb process, as you mentioned, and as we have several Airbnbs out, probably 9 years I've been on Airbnb, of having listings from Illinois to here to Baja, and you create those revenue streams and you create that excitement that people want to come in and utilize that cottage. But the cottage couldn't make enough revenue by itself, no matter how you rent it out. That's why the cottage is in the situation it's in now. It's not attractive the way it is. It's not being used, and so it has to get into a use. Now, to renovate it and then create that use, now you have to add something different to it. And to answer the question on the request for information or the request for quotations, I forgot the acronym kind of, but it said not just the cottage, but it says and the site. So we're not talking about that we stepped outside of our bounds in what we asked the city to do here. It said the Caretaker Cottage and the site. And so I looked at it like, how do we make the cottage and the site attractive to people? And so that they'll come and events like weddings, that people that want to get married in the park, but there's no place to stay. Now they can have 6 yurts that their family can stay in, and they can have the Caretaker Cottage renovated, that they can maybe have some kind of meeting in there or whatever. Or events. We live in a country now and there's people looking for retreats all over the place, and businesses that may say, hey, I want to go to Grants Pass. They have a beautiful park there. They have a beautiful Caretaker's Cottage that Grants Pass put money into to renovate it. And they have 6 yurts right beside that our people can actually stay inside the yurts. They're not going off to a motel or something and come back, but they can stay right there in the park. So now the money stream, in the application I put in the money stream would be from Airbnb rentals, that for the first year we would be renovating the cottage to get it to the spot that we need it to have. And then after that period of time, then that we would kick it into a monthly lease agreement. And then that would incrementally go up as we become more popular as the little resort and Caretaker Cottage resort, or whatever we want to call this. As it becomes more popular and more people come, now that income stream will go up higher. And so like the first year, there may be a certain amount, or there will be a certain amount that would be paid to the city. Then the second year, there would be more, and the third year, more. That would be the basic leasehold agreement. The city would own all of the structures, all of the pieces. Well, the building that we renovated would be owned by the city. But so we would go on, now the Airbnb rentals would go under somebody said the lodging tax, and lodging tax of 12%. So if we had like $100,000 in revenue, and these are just kind of guesstimates right now, there would be $12,000 in lodging tax that would come back to the city. So the city would gather money two ways, one from the lease agreement with us to renovate and be the partner to manage that facility, and then the second would be off of the lodging. And then the third revenue stream is just bringing more people in that's buying gas and eating food, and it may not be huge groups, but groups. And so there's that third revenue stream. So those are the revenue streams that we have.
And thank you for that, and it's even more comprehensive answer than I had expected, but that was great, because I learned. But I'm still trying to get, you threw out a figure, $100,000. Give me a little bit more detail on where you're getting those numbers from as far as, okay, so the yurts, I'm assuming, you talked about someone could potentially have a meeting or whatever, and they might rent all 6 yurts, but I would imagine the rents would be rented out individually, potentially, and you must have a figure, if you've got experience with Airbnbs and such, you must have a rough idea what something like that might go for. But could you break down a little bit more detail, if possible, at this initial stage of exactly where the money's coming from, and as close as you could at this very initial stage, get an idea of what the income stream for the city would be.
And so we're probably looking at the yurts at being 6 yurts, somewhere between $100 and $250 a night, because it would be a combined situation of 6 yurts, and then they would get use of the cottage. So
would there be bathrooms? Like where are they using?
Yeah, the bathrooms, and that's kind of where we ran into where we're at right now with the parks, because we wanted to add bathrooms to the end of the Caretaker Cottage. Which way would that be? The east end, I think, towards the yurts. And so we wanted to add that, and with their improvements that they wanted, it was going to take that whole position all the way up to the building. And so there would be bathrooms there, and then we would renovate the bathrooms inside.
Okay, so the yurts would use the bathrooms from the house, or an additional bathroom that's attached to the house now?
The yurts would use the bathroom outside.
Oh, that's outside the house?
Yes.
Or it would be outside, that you'd be adding. So again...
And those are costs that our plan is to pay those costs. According to what I saw on the request for information or request for proposals, was that, there were certain things the city would pay for, which was the roof and the outside structure, but then from there we take the rest of it. The purchasing of the yurts, the creating of the site path to each yurt, the fencing of the site with the white picket fence around those are costs that we would have. And just kind of an estimate, I didn't see the city maybe having more than $100,000 in cost in this project.
Okay, so thank you, I appreciate that. I had no idea that that was your potential plan. So basically, this is your risk financially. The city
It is, okay. But it's also a controlled risk that you guys put funds into one project that we're doing down here already, and so we believe, and we have enough belief that project is going to be highly successful for Grants Pass, that it will make our parks in Grants Pass even more attractive to tourists that want to come to the area, and locals that want to maybe take their family and spend a night in a yurt in the park and closer to things.
Okay,
so that's a risk.
Yeah, thank you. So you're then, you'd be paying some kind of monthly rent to the city for that whole property. Basically,
yes.
You're just basically a renter, and you want to do this your potential plan is 6 yurts and the house, and you're just paying the city rent. And the city, in addition to the rent, gets the lodging tax.
And a long-term rent, because it'd be like a 20-year deal. We're going to renovate the building, look like the pictures that are up there on the screen, and bring more business into the community.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So if we change the zoning and allow camping in our parks, how is it going to be limited to just one park? Or is that possible? It's just in Riverside Park in this one area?
Correct, yeah. Yep, you have the ability to structure that language in Title VI however you would need to.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Eric, and then Indra?
So the Caretaker's Cottage, that's a great thing, historical site. I'm all for it. I'm all for getting that renovated and having an Airbnb type of situation, whatever we need to have put in there to make it happen. However, the camping, I'm not sure, is there a big demand that we saw from the public that said, we want yurts or camping grounds in our parks? Is there a big demand for that by the public? Did anybody come forward from the public saying, hey, we have to have these campgrounds in our parks?
Certainly not as part of the outreach that we did for this project, no, we haven't. But again, hopefully it communicated that this is resulting from an application, which admittedly we asked for innovation in our RFEI, and this is an outside the box proposal that we have in front of us. So that's really why we are where we are, not because the public responded with a need for or a desire to have additional camping in the public parks.
Yeah, so, okay, thank you.
Indra, and then Rob?
So there were two committees, HBSC and PAC, that discussed this, and we heard a couple concerns. I guess I feel like there's a hole. Is there a reason? Because those are our experts on historical buildings and the parks. And I feel like we don't have their feedback here today as like a committee as a whole. Is there a way that we can hear from, did they vote on, because two people, how many were on that committee? 10? And 8 were for it. So I feel like I'm missing a lot of information that I would like to have before I can go forward in any way. And I think for me, it comes from the people on these committees and what their thoughts are. Is there a way to get that?
Sure, well, we certainly can. Our goal today was to just bring this to you at a high level. We fully expected from staff side that there would not be a final, because if your direction was to proceed with the allowing lodging, then we need to go back and do some of those conversations. If your direction is to not allow for that, then we also need to go back and have some conversations. So if you're to the point where you need that, then we certainly can. The actual RFEI committee that was formed is not just one or the other. It was a combination of 2 representatives from HBSC, 2 representatives from Parks. So you're right, there are other members of each of these groups that may have some other feedback. We didn't structure this that way. This was structured so that a separate review committee comprised of a combination of folks would come together to make a recommendation to you. So that's why you're not hearing the full breadth of both bodies.
Okay, and usually in your presentations, you do have recommendations from the committee or the staff that's bringing it forward. You don't have any recommendations here from that group, or do you?
Yes, there was on slide 5, I think it was a recommendation
I
to proceed with the yurt project.
Oh, okay, I apologize, I missed that.
And we have the chair of the HBSC also here if you had questions of him.
Okay,
But
so the
from-
recommendation was to proceed forward Okay, thank you. I don't know how I missed that. Yes, would that be possible to hear from the chair of the HBSC? Is
Yeah,
that-
go ahead.
I don't know how my voice is going to hold out because I've had the whatever for a week. Anyway, hopefully I won't lose my voice here. I appreciate your bringing that up. Counselor, I was sitting here feeling like I hadn't expressed an interest prior to this meeting to be able to speak today to Mr. Clark. And I think that the historic aspect has been really overlooked here, and I think it's really important. I mean, the council appoints we're not just a committee, we're a commission like the Planning Commission. So we do have quasi-judicial powers, and we are an advisory committee that is charged with preserving our historic resources. Unfortunately, we haven't preserved very many in the past, going back far enough. So it really only started about in the 1990s is when the city started preserving our historic resources. And we don't have hardly any left, and the Caretaker's Cottage, the Reed building, happens to be the only one still standing in Riverside Park. Several years ago, the HBSC discussed at length the possibility of applying to the National Park Service to get Riverside Park recognized for the jewel of the city that it is. And we worked with the historic consultant that works throughout the state of Oregon, and he did a really good report and applied for it, and the National Park Service gave us that designation, and that's huge. It's huge for tourism because a lot of tourists are looking for national historic landmark sites, and people that that love parks, they look for those because they're considered the gem of any community. And so there is yurt camping in many parks in Oregon and throughout the country. It's become very popular because people look now for an experience, something that's different. And so for a lot of people, wow, we can go in instead of looking at concrete walls of the buildings, in front of us and behind us and to the side of us, we can look at huge trees and this beautiful park. And so we felt this would be a very inviting destination. In answer to a couple councilors' questions, Brad did refer to the Isaac Walton League building, which, again, we're one of the only cities in Southern Oregon, maybe the only city in Southern Oregon, that does not have a community center. I don't know if anybody else thinks that's bad, but I think that's terrible. Rogue River has a community center. Grants Pass does not, a city of 40,000. There used to be a community center in Riverside Park. It was called the Isaac Walton Building. I imagine Rick probably remembers it. And probably a couple others sitting up there. And it was a place where people got together and celebrated weddings and family events that were notable. And people gathered there. We don't have that anymore. When the city tore it down, they promised to rebuild it. Never happened. The money was set aside, about the same amount that was shown up here earlier, about $360,000. That was set aside to rebuild that community center building in Riverside Park. And the HBSC has brought it up for years. So yeah, this is maybe a little bit of an effort to do that, to save this building and to use it. And I believe that's Mr. Woodard's part of his plan, and from what I've heard, is to rent it out for celebrations and so forth. So it serves many functions as proposed. And I think there was a slide up here where Brad keeps saying that, well, it wasn't, the grounds weren't included, like where the yurts are and stuff, but actually what the language said on the slide was in the RFI, the request for interest, basically what it said in the language was to discuss the structure, the Reed house, the caretaker's cottage, as well as the area surrounding it, the grounds surrounding it. So it was included in the language to be part of the discussion. I think all of us were surprised. I mean, I didn't hear it mentioned. If it was, I missed it. But I didn't hear, this thing has been through many, many public hearings and processes, including a city survey, a city-paid survey that surveyed, got hundreds of responses, several hundreds of responses, and a full 75% of the respondents said, save this building. I think the city was shocked. I wasn't surprised because I know that the residents of this town care about the few historic resources left at our roots. And to me, it's pathetic, the people that could care less about the history of our town. I think it deserves some pride. I think it deserves to be saved. And I think that this particular proposal meets a lot of goals. It appeals to tourism. It boosts our economics. It boosts our economic pride. It puts more eyes on the park. I know the two Parks Advisory Committees that served on that subcommittee with myself and another HPSC member. The very first meeting we had, the one woman who lived right across the street on Park Street, she had some concerns about, well, I don't know what people are going to think in the neighborhood about, having this camping and stuff. And then the next meeting, Bernie was invited and everybody asked him questions and he laid out the plan. And at that point, both of the women on the Parks Advisory Committee said, we're very supportive of this concept, and we believe that these eyes on the park and this presence in the park will make the park stronger and better and safer. And, so what's going to look better? I don't know what you guys thought about the yellow color of the building. We will have to review that, Bernie, the color. But anyway, he was obviously making an attempt to brighten it up and make it have a nice look. So the alternative to that is we have this ugly warehouse with a bunch of junk, piled around it, and then we're going to build more concrete, more asphalt out onto, so that's what you see when you turn down Park Street. If you think about how long that Mexican restaurant has been on that corner and how successful it's been, I think it speaks to the viability and the possibility of the potential impact and impact stream that this could provide for the city. Initially, the HPSC, our goal was to make it revenue neutral. This is a huge plus. It's not just revenue neutral, it's going to provide an income stream. And I believe it will be a wonderful thing for the city and for tourism and a wonderful piece of our history that we can save. So, if you have any questions regarding the processes that we've been through, but the only time we ever heard anything about, well, we want to rebuild the warehouse was every few years when we'd bring it up at an HPSC meeting and make a motion that would come before the council that we need to do some maintenance. Somebody needs to do some maintenance on the caretaker's cottage. In 2 decades, there was no maintenance done. It just was allowed to degrade and degrade and degrade. It's pathetic. And yet, what backs right up to it? The maintenance yard. Kind of ironic. In any case, does anybody have any questions otherwise about the historic or the process that we've been through? I know Councilor Schlogel and Councilor King both serve on as liaisons to our commission. So.
My concern is the camping aspect of it. I mean, is it even something that, it sounds like it might be a problem with the parks, and he had mentioned that the negatives outweigh the positives. So I'm not sure if the public would be willing to go along with the whole camping yurt aspect of it. And I know it's tourists. the benefits we're saying are the tourism coming towards the city, but my concern is what is the general public going to be thinking about all of this? Do they have an issue with that? I mean, before we go forward with this, is that something that we're going to get the approval of the public? Because right now I'm hearing a lot of negatives towards the camping aspect. And again, as far as the historical part of this caretaker's cottage, I'm all for it. Let's make sure that we make sure that we preserve that, because that's very important. And I understand the whole thing with the camping, but I just don't know if that's something that the public wants.
Yeah, well, I'm not hearing a lot of negatives. I heard a couple of comments over there somewhere, but I'm not hearing a lot of negatives. Basically, like I think I said, maybe I didn't finish my statement there, but one of the women that was on the Parks Advisory Subcommittee, that was members of the Parks Advisory Committee and the HBSC, met with Brad and a couple other staff members, one time without Mr. Woodard, one time with Mr. Woodard. And the woman who lives directly across the street from where the yurts would be, after hearing the whole presentation and the whole plan and whatever, she said, I'm very much in support of this. And she basically felt it was going to be a very positive thing for the neighborhood. I think she felt it was going to be a lot more positive than an ugly, junky-looking warehouse with, storage boxes and an asphalt driveway or a concrete driveway. And I think that, when she saw what the yurts were going to look like and the fact that they're used very successfully in not only county parks but national parks. It's kind of like the past meeting the future here. It's a new concept for Grants Pass, having camping or yurts, but historically, okay, and that's what we do. Historically, Riverside Park used to have camping, and Brad will verify that. Correct, Brad?
Yes, down close to the river, not up in this area.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just recently, we had a bicycle group, state bicycle group that camped. I don't know how many the council approved. I don't know how many tents, and alcohol and whatever else, So it's not like it didn't exist historically. And we always look at that. Was there a historic component to this? In whatever we do, we always look at the history. And yes, there was history there was camping in Riverside Park. So let's not assume that we're going to have problems. We had a public survey that was 75% in favor. Do you guys ever see anything that comes before you that you get 75% in favor of anything? I don't. I don't see it happening. So I'm just saying there's a lot of positives here, and we can assume all day long that it's going to create problems. The parks have been cleaned up, and we're moving in a direction of, renewed vitality and appreciation of the parks, and this will be a major component of making that happen, in my opinion.
So did your committee reach out to law enforcement and ask what the impact of this would be? Because we just heard earlier, our Parks Department expressed a lot of concern and to tell us that there's many more negatives than positives. So, and one of those was a law enforcement aspect. So, two questions. Did the committee reach out to law enforcement, and then what was the outcome of that? And the second was, you said there was one lady who lived across the street and she's all for it. Did you reach out to a wider group of neighbors?
We haven't yet, because until you guys had this discussion, but we would be more than happy to do that piece. We'd be more than happy to do that piece.
Oh, so you haven't reached out to law
We
enforcement
haven't, because
or other
until,
neighbors?
Basically we were told don't do anything else because it needs to go before the city council to see how they feel about camping in the park. So, I mean, like I said, we would be very happy to do that piece.
Oh, okay. That would be really useful to, we need to know from the public what they, before we could vote to change this, we definitely need to know.
We'd be happy to do,
public.
the law enforcement contact as well as the neighborhood contact.
Yeah, I just think we need so much more information before we could do that.
I get
But
it. Yeah, I get it.
Thank you. And then I saw Kathleen and then Joel.
Well, I don't really have that many questions. I have more of a discussion. Are we
Do
getting to
we have any
discussion
more
yet?
questions? And if not, we'll just, okay, Rick and then Indra, and then we'll move on to.
So Brad, if we move forward, I also see one of the major issues I see here is how the parking would be handled. That could be an item that either makes it go forward or not go forward. So if we do go forward today, are you able to conceptually come back with some ideas of how the parking could be handled?
Well, that would certainly be our job. We would go look into that. Right now, it's, as Ward mentioned, or maybe it was Josh, there is no parking signage on East Park Street. We put that up a couple of years ago. And then, as Josh mentioned, it's currently closed off to get access at night to the backside. So, 6 yurts, we know how much parking is needed is not a surprise. We can easily figure that out, but it would need to be looking at the logistics of how to coordinate that.
We briefly touched on a discussion of that we need to talk about and develop a parking plan, but we didn't go any further with it. Again, waiting for this conversation. But absolutely, yeah, we would definitely have a discussion that would include Mr. Woodard as well, and come up with a parking plan that the council is satisfied with.
I think Indra and then Rob.
Yes, this is probably for Stephanie. I'm assuming any contract for this would have it could have a sunset clause, or so we could go a few years and see how it's working, and if it wasn't working, there'd be something in there that we could end it if it was bad.
That is something we could explore with a contract, yes.
Okay. So a couple questions for Brad. Getting back to something that Indra asked earlier, what did they actually say at these committee meetings? Council can go back and listen to those meetings, correct? I haven't listened to them yet, but that's available. Those exact meetings, we can actually listen to the audio, right?
I'm hesitating because
I'm talking about parks and HBFC.
Oh, sure.
Those are recorded, yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
but
because
not.
that was her question initially. What did they say
Right,
in those meetings?
right.
I'm like, well, we can listen to that. So then my question would be the special committee that had 3 staff and 2, and was that also recorded?
That's why I was hesitating. I do not believe that it was, and we typically would not record a subcommittee that is reviewing an RFP or an RFI.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Anything else?
Maybe some, and I don't think so at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll bring it back for discussion. And I just would like to express what the Parks Department said. They see more negatives than positives. The people in the neighborhood have not been asked, and the police have not necessarily been, have not weighed in on this. And the other thing that I think people might not have talked about, they're talking about all this increased revenue. But if people are going to come to Grants Pass, they usually stay in a hotel. So we haven't asked if there's possible loss of revenue to other businesses. So I think that we need to know all of these things. And once we know all of these things, then we could better judge whether or not we wanted to change the zoning. And so I would be against this right now, but with more information and feedback from the public, definitely it might be a possibility. It could be that the public floods us, say, never thought of that. That would be great. But at this point, as Councilor Schlegel pointed out, people have not been even asking for something like this, so to go ahead and change our zoning on something we just don't know about yet, I think wouldn't be a wise move for the council. And so I would be against moving forward now, but I would be for staff getting us that information. And then maybe it would be great. Okay, Rob.
Yeah, there's a few things. And actually, I did have one more question for Brad I forgot to ask. So a couple years ago, when council gave direction, or maybe it was last summer, gave direction to shore up the roof or whatever, so was that a new roof that was put on then, or that's yet to be done?
That's yet to be done. That was,
So
it was
basically
cleaned.
just patched,
It had a lot of moss and other algae growth on it, and we went on and cleaned that off.
Okay. One thing that, and I really appreciate Ward bringing up the fact that camping actually is a historical part of that park. But one thing that I tying together what Mr. Woodard and Eric's comments, you know, if people value that structure, the Reed Building, if people value that structure, to redo that and make it pristine is going to be absolutely no long-term value unless we can find a creative way to repurpose that building. And I know that a couple of years ago when council was talking about this, there was talk about, oh, we should have a museum in there or a gift shop or this or that. The fact of the matter is those are probably not going to be financially viable. You know, you've got to have employees there, you've got to be open a lot of hours they're not going to be financially viable. And I think everyone kind of realized that just redoing that building in and of itself was not enough, was not going to be a creative approach to create a repurpose to actually make that whole project worthwhile. So if we're interested in saving that building, which I am for a bunch of different reasons, a repurpose for that building and or the existing area, I think is going to be required. It's kind of, I don't think you can do one without the other. For that reason, I'm very interested, and I think it's a pretty creative suggestion to do some kind of Airbnb extended use of that building, because the building in and of itself is not going to generate enough money or enough interest to really be worth it. I don't think, anyway. You know, the other issue too is it's kind of been stated, and it's on the record, that our Parks Department and our supervisor, they have a competing interest for that space. And I don't know that we'd be getting a completely 100% unbiased view, because they want that space for a driveway, and they want to enhance that maintenance building, and they've said that over the years. They've said it, so that's their preferred use there. And I don't know if it's human nature. I'm not sure if we got a completely unbiased opinion on what would be the best use for that space, because it's on record that the Parks Department people and our staff have wanted that for something else. Whether or not there's a creative use now that's better for our community and better for the public, there could quite possibly be. And I think that we absolutely need to look further into it. And I appreciate Mr. Woodard coming up with a creative way that we could potentially make it viable to save that building, because I don't think anybody really saw that before he made that suggestion.
Kathleen and then Joel.
Well, I'm not entirely in favor of camping in the park, but restoring this building would be really great. And from my perspective, I think that in order to do a great job with the building, the focus should be the building, not yurts and extensions and all that, because what was shown in the diagram was very basic. It didn't attract me at all. It was like, ooh, that doesn't really look historical. That doesn't really look unique. So from my perspective, it seems like we should put all the money into the building instead of expanding to outside areas. And I think that there would be more of a maybe collaboration between the parks and this project if that was the case.
So I appreciate what you came up with, Bernie. To me, it's turning a liability into a community asset, which I think this community desperately needs. My background, 35 years with the United States Forest Service, and also being supervisory of a lot of recreation areas and a lot of historic districts. If you look at Union Creek Historic District, it was going to fade away, just like the Caretaker's Cottage. We turned it over to the private sector, including all the houses where the government employees used to work. There was a lot of resistance. A lot of people thought it wouldn't happen or that it was going to be negative. Today, if you go up to Becky's and Union Creek Resort, you can rent any of those houses. You can live in a 1930 CCC house. You got 2 huge campgrounds, which isn't appropriate for Riverside Park, that are very much used by the public, Farewell Bend, and it turned a liability there that was costing us money, your federal government money, into something that generated money and that the public enjoyed and actually treasures. Another example is the Cedar House down on the Illinois River, where the same thing was happening. It was being ransacked. It was the Bark Cedar House. I don't know if you've ever been down there. A lot of people said that place is a complete wreck, and it was, and it's not worth restoring. And it was restored through a grant, and today you can go down there and see it, and hopefully anyway they had good stewardship. And it's an asset that people go down and see. So to me, it's about turning a community liability into a community asset that the people treasure and value as part of their historic background and also as part of their experience in Grants Pass. So I'm kind of passionate about it, but so forgive me. And it's okay if you disagree with me.
Indra?
Yes, I agree with Joel. It is a liability now, and we do need to turn it into an asset, and there's a lot of potential there. Whether this is the answer, we don't know yet. We're just on the road to discover that. And so while we do need more information, as Councilor Marshall said, we can't get more information unless we decide to go forward today with that. So I would be in favor of going forward to explore, to get the information that was asked for by counselors today so that we can make a better educated decision with more information.
Well, we certainly could get the information as to whether or not the public wanted this before we went forward. That was my main concern, and with the Parks Department with their concerns too. So I just think it's super important that the public knows what's happening. They're going to be blindsided by this, and I don't think people, even if they want this, even if they end up wanting this, I don't think they're going to appreciate just having it happen before they're informed. So that was my point there. And Rick?
A continuation on your comments, Victoria's. If we're going to the public, I think we need more information so they're properly informed as when they make a decision, what they see the impact. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you.
So I'm looking for a motion, or is there any further discussion? Indra?
Yes, I move that we go ahead with this project.
Do I have a second? I see a second from Joel. And so we will start with Kathleen.
So what does that
excuse me?
mean? What does it mean, go ahead with the project?
Oh, go ahead with changing the zoning. Is that what you meant, Indra?
What did you mean by that?
Yeah, the motion was to go ahead and approve the project and move forward, basically. But then I also heard 3 council members say, ooh, this may be right if we have more information.
So I guess I'm just asking Indra what she meant by her.
Yeah, thank you. So it's just for changing the zoning.
I'm asking Indra what she meant by the motion.
That's what I'm asking her.
Okay.
Well, let me ask you, Aaron, so recommending going forward with the project does mean getting information. So with this approved project, I would like to move forward with the recommendation from the committee to go forward with this project.
And that is a motion to go ahead and move forward with this project, and that's fine, we can do that. I also heard a number of questions about, well, we need more information, we'd like to survey the community, we'd like to survey the neighborhood, we'd like to get more information on a lodging tax or the potential impacts there. And if that's part of it, then that wouldn't be part of that motion. I think you need to have that information first, and then once that information is provided to you, then you make a decision on whether or not you want to move forward with this specific project. But if you're comfortable with this specific project and the way it stands, then your motion as it has been made and seconded is an appropriate motion.
Okay, I would move forward to get more information on the project.
So currently, right now, we have a motion and a second on the table. You can ask to remove the motion. The person who seconded to remove the motion, we could start over with a new motion if that's what you'd like to do.
I withdraw my motion.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, all right.
And I will make another motion to move forward with gathering information for the project going forward.
Does that include the change of the zoning, or is it just information so we can come? Okay, thank you. Rick's saying no, so, but I don't know, is that what you meant, Indra?
It would mean to, no, not change the zoning at this time, but look into changing the zoning. Once we get the information, we could decide to change the zoning.
Okay, so to be clear, there's a motion on the table to get more information, which would include, can we say, more information from the Parks Department, from the police, from the public? Is it those kinds of things? Okay. All right, do I have a second?
So
And-
again,
oh,
question. So when we say those kinds of things, that's very broad. So can we pin that down, or do we want to pin that down later? Because those kinds of things, it doesn't really mean much to me.
Rick?
I would like to see parking as one of those things.
So police, parks, public, and parking, the 4 Ps. And Aaron.
So to get more direction, so we make sure that our expectations are clear amongst what the policy board would like to have, the seeking of information, what I heard through the discussion is I think what we would do is we would try to do a specific reach out to the surrounding neighborhood, and then also do a general community survey of councils considering this. What are your thoughts? So we do 2 types of surveys. One is a specific target, one is open to the general public, and then we could try to gather some just general information based on some additional pros and cons or information with regards to having yurts and camping in Redwood Park. But I wanted to make sure that we're clear on the type of surveys, and if those 2 surveys would hit your target, then we can do that.
Okay. So somehow involved in that survey, it needs to be made clear to the public that the ballpark of what it might cost financially to the public. From what we've heard today, it would be very, very low cost financially, that most of the risk would be on the developer, Mr. Woodard. But some ballpark or a concept that this would be an income producing property for the city, and some ballpark of those figures, because otherwise the public really can't really make an educated guess or an opinion without having some idea. They might actually think that the city's footing the bill for this, and they don't look at it as an income stream. So that needs to be somehow presented to the public when they're deciding whether or not they think this is a good thing or not, that there's an income stream involved and that there's very low financial risk to the city. So I'm not exactly sure what those figures are, but that needs to be represented as accurately as we can.
And I think, Kathleen, did you have a?
Well, yeah, that was my concern, is because what it said here was that we first need to talk about the zoning before anything else. So it was kind of like, oh, what are we voting on? Before proceeding with any discussion about the RFEI, staff recommends council first addresses the policy question to allow overnight camping.
So yeah, that was the key piece, because if council was not willing or interested in having camping in the parks, then this discussion didn't need to come to fruition, and we could have just stopped there. But it sounded like council, at least at this point, was interested in exploring that idea. That zoning change would only occur once council was provided staff direction to go ahead and move forward with that. What we'll do is we'll bring forward some suggestion of a survey and what that information that survey will provide. And we'll let council review both of those before we send it out, so we make sure that we're on the same page. We'll try to get some information with regards to providing a full picture on the purpose, the benefits. Don't know how far we can get into trying to put down numbers on what we think we might obtain from a revenue standpoint. That might be difficult at this stage, but to provide the basics on why we're having this discussion will be part of that main survey, and we'll provide that to council before we publish that.
So I've heard the things we want included to hear back about are more information from our Parks Department, more information from the public parking, revenue streams and cost. And also, I heard the idea come up about the historic nature of the building. And so maybe we could add how that is going to be preserved with this particular project as well, because I think Kathleen brought that up. So from council, is there anything else that you would want to have included in the information that we get back, Rob?
Well, as Aaron said, just to be 1,000% clear, that comes back to council, the potential survey, before it gets sent out.
That's what I'm suggesting.
Okay, it's a pretty big motion, but is everybody clear? All right, so we'll start with Kathleen.
Yes.
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 Yes. So it is unanimous, and I think staff probably has direction.
We all have some notes here. Thank you very much, council.
Okay. All right, next up on our agenda is appointing a council member to the Elk Island Review Panel. I don't believe we have a presentation. This will just be discussion. Okay. So I know that we had an email today from Seth, who could not be here today, but he wanted to be considered for this. And my idea was, I thought that we should have two, I don't know how council will feel about this, but we should have two council members, and probably one council member who was for the advisory, was for the project, and then maybe one who was not for the project. And so we could have, we could put forth those two people. So I would just like to go ahead and make a motion, and to have Seth and Kathleen appointed to this committee. Just toss that right out there, and then Joel.
I think we need discussion
Okay, go
ahead of
ahead,
time.
Joel.
I think we need discussion ahead of time, Council President, with respect.
Okay.
Because I need some information on what is the purpose of the committee. The purpose of the committee isn't to revisit the original decision. What is the purpose of the committee?
Well, I did.
I was asking,
Sure.
asking the city manager, what is the
Sure,
purpose of the
but
committee?
I made a motion, though, so I wondered if there's a second on that motion. I do see a second, but now we're certainly, go ahead with discussion.
Yeah. So I'm afraid this is getting ramroded or road rammed or whatever without adequate discussion and trying to circumvent the intent of the council's past decisions. And it may not be, and if it's not, that's fine, but if it is, it's not appropriate. And I'd just like to call that out. And I'm not sure I agree with you, Victoria. But anyway, so I needed to know what was the purpose of the committee. Is it to re-examine the past decision, or what is the purpose of the committee?
No, it's not to re-examine any past decision. The language specifically from the grant agreement is that the grantee, which is Elk Island, has to establish a community panel that meets at least monthly and includes representatives from Grants Pass Police, City Council, Elk Island, and the neighborhood. The panel shall address community concerns and develop a written plan that must be established prior to providing any shelter services. A copy of that plan then gets provided to the city. So it's
So
to
it's just
deal with that.
part of the implementation is what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay.
Which I already knew, which I don't appreciate.
Well, I just had to make sure.
So, yeah, and my idea behind that wasn't to circumvent anything. It was just to get a broad cross-section from council, and also to represent Councilor Benham, because he wanted to be on it. Okay, I think I saw Indra.
Yes, you know, the council voted to have Elk Island go forward with the project. A lot of community members are on board. I want this to be a really positive thing, so I want people who are pro for the shelter, pro for what Bernie and Mint are doing. I don't see a reason to have someone that voted no on it and might have some negative energy in there. I think it should be a positive. I think we only need one counselor. I would be willing to have Seth as that one counselor.
Okay. I don't think that Kathleen would add any negative energy to that, but in fact, I think it would be very positive energy. And it would just be a broad, it would be people who would be looking out for all aspects of the contract for the city. So other comments, or Rob?
Yeah, a couple times, certainly the night of the grant, it seemed as though we had a few counselors anyway that really didn't want to see Elk Island succeed, quite frankly. And I'm not interested in having anybody on this particular group that doesn't want to see that project succeed. So I think that maybe speaks to what Indra was saying. I personally wanted to be that person also, but it doesn't matter that much to me as long as it gets done in a reasonable way. But I believe that Seth wanted to see this project succeed, and the negativity potentially could come from feedback from neighbors who are looking out for their best interest, and that would be very appropriate. And I think that creates the automatic balance. That's what the neighborhood group creates, the balance there. So it's not a question of finding balance on the council. It's a question of balancing this group. Any potential positive could come from the neighbors, but that would be the potential criticism, and sometimes quite potentially viable criticism or accurate criticism council needs to hear. That's going to come from the neighbors, and it might come from the police representative that's on there also. So I don't know that I see the need to have two counselors on there trying to balance out some division on the council that theoretically should be in the rearview mirror. The division on the council on that should be in the rearview mirror because we've already decided to go forward. So that's kind of arbitrary to say we need one from both sides. That's not really the way we're acting here. We're going forward. The city is going forward as a unified group. So one counselor would be sufficient. I think any concerns, I think, can come from the neighbors and come from the police representative. For that reason, I'll be against voting for the two counselors doing it.
It's not for council, it's for the public. The broad nature from our city council would be representative of the public. Kathleen?
Well, I just want to say that I don't think I have that much power. I mean, there's lots of people on this panel that are for it, so I don't see that I'm going to make that much difference. I just would appreciate if you could be open-minded to have somebody like me on the panel.
Thank you, Kathleen. Indra?
And I apologize. I don't mean that you would do something bad. So I don't mean it in that way. I guess what I'm saying is we had counselors vote for and against, and then again, there was something where it was very clear who is against Elk Island and who is not. And I think it's divisive to have someone who was for and against. If we want two counselors, like, I'm open to that, but I would have to, so if Rob or Rick or, someone who is for it wanted to do it, I would be open to having two, or just one, but I think having one for and against is very divisive.
So it's not for and against, it's just representing different aspects that exist in the community. So it's not about us, it's about the public. Eric?
I don't understand the whole resistance here. To me, it seems to be kind of, I don't even know what the word for it is. It seems divisive, yes, because we're creating the divisiveness. So there are certain criteria that need to be met on the RFI. So how is that going to make anything different if we have, in my opinion, if we have two people from the council to represent, we have a backup now, and we also have a primary. I don't know if that's what the aspect we want to take here. So I am completely in favor of the more the better. So I don't understand what the resistance is, but that's, I mean, we're all council members here, and the RFI was made. There's certain timelines that need to be kept. So how is that going to change things?
Rob?
Well, for some reason, I don't know why, maybe Victoria could explain it better, but for some reason it's been decided that Seth alone couldn't represent the public on this. For some reason, she seems to think that Kathleen would be required to fill in gaps that Seth would have, or that any one person would have. That seems very arbitrary, and it does seem very divisive, I agree. And I'm not exactly sure why. I guess you could base it on how things, you know, how the voting went and so forth. But this should be a fairly straightforward process. Why we're adding more division to it, I don't know. You know, and why one counselor who wants to move forward with this in a positive way can't represent the interest of the people. If we want to break that down, we're going to need 8 counselors on this community task force, but that, you know, that's not really the way it was proposed. It was proposed as one. It was proposed as one from the police department and the public. We could do more, but I don't understand why we have to divide it out and assume that the one counselor that we would propose would be incapable of representing someone else.
Kathleen and then Rick?
I don't think it's about incapability, Rob. I think it's about Seth is out of town quite a bit. He has business ventures, he has work. He's not here today because he's working. So it's just a backup, and it's just a good idea probably to have 2.
Rick?
So I guess the membership of the council has been stated, which included 1 counselor. So if 2 counselors were in attendance, does 1 counselor have the ability to vote and the other just as a backup, or how would that be handled?
The way that the language in the grant agreement is written, it's pretty flexible. All it says is that it should include representatives from the Grants Pass Police, City Council, Elk Island, and the neighborhood. It doesn't specify that there's a limit to the number of representatives for any particular group, just that it would have to be probably 1 or more.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm wondering if one is in the official position, the other's a backup position, but if that would help resolve the issue here today. Thank you.
Indra?
Yeah, the motion was made so quickly. I guess we got an email from Seth. Rob said he might be interested. I guess I'd like to know, is there anyone else who would be interested in being on there from council?
Rob?
First, I just have a question. So to Kathleen, because you brought up a good point about Seth's attendance. So do you want to see this project succeed at Elk Island and Parker's location?
I want to be informed about how it's advancing.
Do you want to see it succeed? Was my question.
Microphone, Kathleen.
I want to see how it's advancing. I'm very interested to know how it's progressing and why, and if not, why. And I'm just very interested. Rob, are you as interested?
Well, I'm very interested, and I also am not shy about saying I want to see it succeed. And, when we first had the very first, the 6-hour meeting with the RFP discussion that, went forever, after it appeared at that meeting that Pathways was going to get it, but they still had to prove their property, I went out in the audience and I shook Jeremy's hand and I shook Julie's hand and I wished them good luck because I wanted to see it succeed. The fact is they had no property and that's what couldn't happen. So I want to know, so my point is, regardless of who got it, I want to see it succeed. So I'm just asking a very simple question. You don't have to answer me, but do you want to see Elk Island succeed? Do you want to see this project succeed? Because if you don't, I would vote against you. If you do, I would vote for you.
Okay, so I'll say it like this, Rob. I want to see the law followed. I want to do what is required of our city to get something in place for the unhoused. I want to have something in place. Is that good enough for you?
All right, so I think we are finished with discussion. So there is a motion to appoint Seth and Kathleen to the, as members to the Elk Island Review Panel. And we'll start with roll call with Kathleen.
Yes.
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 I'm going to vote no.
Yes, and so that is 6 and 1, and so the motion passes. And thank you, everyone. And next up on our agenda is agenda review. And so, Rick, I see your hand. Or did I miss something? Maybe I'm looking at the one online, excuse me.
We
and
have
it
we
is
have two
page-
motions for council to consider, one
Okay.
from Public Art.
Oh, they were
And-
below the agenda review, so I thought that
Okay.
was kind of weird, but I thought, well, that's the way it is, so if we want to save agenda review to the end, that's fine. So let's just go ahead and move on to the Committee on Public Art motion. And do we have staff reading that, or?
Yeah, the motion is to increase the number of members for the Committee on Public Art to 11. And your call to action is to ask for a council workshop to discuss it, put it on a council business meeting to change the membership number, or take no action.
Rick?
So I'm the liaison for the Public Art Committee, and we're finding the enthusiasm is such there that we have more people that have a really strong background in art and a passion for it, that we hate, as a committee, they hate to say no to them that they can't serve. So before you today is a proposal to add additional members as well. Thank you.
Rob?
So I don't understand why they wanted to add more members.
Because right now there's, I forget, what is it, 7?
Yeah.
Karen will look up the exact number.
And what did you want? Was
I
it
don't
to
have-
11?
We want 11.
11, okay.
We want 11 seats so that those people that have applied for the public art can serve.
The one caveat that we've had with some membership that large, and we've had a few before in the past, and I don't know if COPA was one of those, is it is a little more difficult to get the quorums when you have 11 because it ups the number, and there's the complexity of that's associated with it. So we've usually tried to limit those to 7, 5, something along those lines. But that would be the one caveat that we would have, is the potential of quorum issues. Doesn't prohibit people from participating on the committee and being there for the meetings and those kind of things, but if they want to be named as a committee member, then that's something that council can consider.
That caveat was presented to the committee, and they decided that they would like to open up the position, providing the city council would entertain it. Thank you.
In membership, there's 9 on the committee.
Oh, there's 9 now, and it would increase it 2 members. Okay. Joe?
So one of the things that I was concerned with, and it's not unique to COPA, but the number of people on a committee is directly proportional to their efficiency and their ability to function. And so when you have 11 people, you can talk 1/11 of the time. And when you have 7 people, you can talk 1/7 of the time. And usually what happens when you have 11 people, you have 7 people that talk 1/7 of the time, and the other 4 people don't say anything. And it gets to be a dynamic that can be unhealthy and inefficient. And then people eventually lose interest. So I don't know. I kind of like where it's at.
Rob?
Yeah, I agree with Joel. It's, as far as, coming up with a quorum, very often, when you have a slightly smaller number, people tend to take their responsibility a little more seriously. I think whether there's a quorum problem at 7 or 9, I think that it's likely that by the time you get to 11, it's just a little bit more likely because there's going to be less people that are going to think it really comes down to them to show up in order to make a quorum. So I think 9 is already a fairly large committee, and I don't necessarily see the advantage of going to 11. And again, the ones that are serious, when it's 9, they're going to show up. And I think as it gets more diluted, I think people's feeling of responsibility is reduced as you increase the number. So I don't think I would be in favor of expanding it out to 11.
Other comments, questions? Indra?
Yeah, just lastly, a concern I would have is there are a lot of people who want to be on the art committee now, but down the road, if you have 11 spots, do you have 2 vacant or 3 because you don't have so many people wanting it? I'm in favor of keeping it as is.
All right, we'll take a roll call. Kathleen? And it's to increase it from 9 to 11.
No.
Sorry, it's a little, I had something else I wanted to ask real quick of Rick. Rick, you were on the committee. Can you please restate some of the benefits that you think would be? Are you in favor or against it?
When the position came open that people could apply to be on COPA, we had more applicants than we had positions. And yet the resumes that were submitted were very strong in the art sector. And we felt, as the existing committee, it would be nice to give them the opportunity to participate as well. Even so, I made the suggestion to them that we could bring to the City Council if they would like to expand COPA, the number of people there, so these other people could participate. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm in favor of keeping it the same then. Thank you. No.
No.
Yes?
No.
I guess I'll just go with what Rick, what he's bringing from the committee, and I'll vote yes. However, the motion fails, and 5-2. All right, and so up next is,
We have a Parks motion also.
yeah. So do you want
Bradley,
to
do you wanna
explain that?
Give some background on that?
If it's okay, if we could have Josh, I think he would speak to it a little bit more better than myself.
I mean, in front of you, the motion, Josh can fill in, but I'll just read the motion. The motion is to recommend evaluating repurposing the fly fishing practice pond at Reinhardt Volunteer Park into a national playground based on community survey results.
Hello, Council. So we did a community survey last month to look into what we'd want to do potentially to repurpose the fly fishing pond at RVP. The fly fishing pond was put in the early 2000s. It does not get the type of use that we'd expect for an amenity at this park. And based on a lot of the community feedback in the survey, a lot of people weren't aware what it was for. We do have signs there saying it's a fly fishing practice pond and some of the history on it. But with our community survey, we went out there and pulled the community. We gave them 6 potential options plus an other. Of those 6 options, they were comprised of things that we've had people actually ask to be added into Reinhardt Park as well as other parks. The number one thing that did end up winning overall was other bike pump track. We already have a pump track plan for the Beacon Hill Park development. Additionally, this side of the park, the committee felt it's more of a natural area in general, and it might detract from the overall recreational atmosphere of that location to convert it to a pump track. The second highest choice for the options 1 and 2 was the natural playground. So that's why the committee made the recommendation to move forward with the natural playground if council was interested. And what that would mean is if council is interested in this, you'd give us a motion basically saying, yep, support moving forward. We would go work with our playground industry providers that we usually work with and get a couple of cost estimates and design ideas. And then we'd probably do it like what we did the Reinhardt Playground, where we'd put that out to the community, give them a couple of options, see which one they like the most, and then we'd bring back like a full package with estimated costs to council to consider whether we want to go out for a grant or anything like that to support that project.
What does a natural play, can you just define natural playground?
So natural playgrounds are pretty cool. They are more natural in general. They generally comprise more sensory type explorative play as opposed to more static composite structures that's like circular play. Your composite playgrounds, which is what we have all of things, they are, manufactured materials, metals, plastics, and the type of play is very much so designed to be one specific way around, and normally you do it in lake loops and things. Natural playgrounds incorporate more natural things. It's going to be your wood. It's going to generally have some sort of water play element, sand play elements, and things like that that really touch on the sensory play, which, one of the members of our committee talked about how their child has some variation of a spectrum disorder, and that would be really beneficial to that population. Additionally, it's more of a slower form of play. It's not the running back and forth type of a thing, so there's less traffic kind of collisions that end up happening between different age groups. And it really is just more of a basic natural playground. You end up with rope climbers, rock climbers. Some places offer natural playground materials that are composite because they last longer, but they're shaped to look like rocks and things like that. Other places put in boulders, large logs, things like that that have been treated to where they're going to be weather resistant and everything. But the idea is that it's more you're out in nature like at a campground just playing on what's around. And it really does just trigger a different form of mental stimulation in children when they're playing in that type of playground versus the composite structure.
Thank you. Rob?
Josh, are you familiar with the natural playground over in Klamath?
No.
Okay. Because I think I took pictures of that playground and sent it to council several years ago, and it seems to be exactly as you described, and it was extremely well attended the 2 or 3 days that I observed it, and it was extremely well attended, and it really caught my eye as being something that was really unique. I thought it'd be great for Grants Pass, but it seems like, I'd be curious to know what your opinion of that. I probably have the pictures, I could probably send them to you, but I was just wondering, but that's what it sounds like to me. But another question I have is, so how many respondents were they to this survey, and what percentage of them wanted this?
There was over 400 respondents to this survey. It was one of the better ones we've gotten responses. I think it was either 470. I'm not sure if I included the actual survey results with the respondents in the memo I sent to council. 483. And of that, the number one respondents was for the pump track other, but heavily favored was the natural playground right after that. Over a quarter of the respondents plus went for the natural playground for options 1 and 2.
So it seems like metal, plastic, et cetera, is kind of like set it and forget it until it wears out and you replace it 20 years later. What's the maintenance schedule for something like this, do you know?
Natural playgrounds are very similar to composite structures. They all have to meet ASTM standards for safety and everything like that. And when you purchase a playground, they give you a booklet of your recurring maintenance for what to do with it. And we have certified playground safety technicians.
Kathleen?
I'm just curious, what is a pump track?
Pump track, it's similar to what you see at B Street Jumps right now. We have a park called Loveless Park in it. It's the home of B Street Jumps. It's a DG type of pump track for decomposed granite. It's got loops, hills, banks, and the idea is that it allows kids and young people to practice a lot, to get up to speed, to go hit it at the River City pump track over there. But this one, if we were going to go this style, would be more of an asphalt type pump track. That's what we've been planning for Beacon Hills Park development. And they recently just put one in Crescent City that's been pretty heavily attended and everything like that. But yeah, so it's basically just a little racetrack type thing with banks turns to gain confident speed. And it's not just for bikes, people with longboard, skateboard, scooters.
So similar to the skate park?
Similar, except for it's more of a route with designated routes in between. The skate park's very much so more of like geared towards skating, and now, because of the way things change, scooters, you know, with the bowls and everything like that. But the idea is, yeah, that community uses the pump track as well as the skate park.
Yeah,
So you want, it would be your preference to have us tell you that we're going to go with a natural playground, and then you're going to put several of those models out to the public? Is that the idea?
Yeah, so the Parks Advisory Committee is an advisory committee to council, but they don't really dictate to a high degree what we're going to spend staff time and resources on. So at times like this, where they have this idea they want to do like our other committees, they'll generally check to basically get council's blessing. That frees me up to go out there and work with our different providers to be able to justify spending that staff time.
Okay, but it would be, maybe I'm wrong, but I heard that your preference is for us to direct for that natural playground because the pump track is going to be somewhere else in the future. And so that was kind of what you were looking for from us, or?
Yeah, the Parks Advisory Committee's motion is in supporting of using a natural playground.
Of the natural playground.
Yeah.
Okay, Indra, and then Rob.
So I have a question about the fly fishing. So that was the original purpose, and I read the comments, so a lot of people didn't know about it. Did it used to be used more and then it just stopped, or was it never really used for that?
I'm not sure the history of its usage. Essentially, it was put in as an Eagle Scout project by
Right.
John Reinhardt's grandson back in the day. And I think back in 2018, the steelheaders helped put in a new liner to the fly fishing pond. But the local steelhead and fly fishing groups used to do basically a seminar every year out there with local kids and everything. And they're still doing it at Reinhardt. They're just not even using the fly fishing pond. They're using the grass area next to Harry and David now. So it's, from what we've seen since, whether it's I started or even before during COVID, we're not seeing anyone really use that area. I think I've had one person ask about it in 3 years.
And would the repurpose, so there's that pond area and then there's more of a waterway and another little pond. Is it that whole water area or just where the big pond is?
So we have the pond, which is the fishing pond, and that's off to the side. The fly fishing pond is far away from that. It's as you come into the park, a lot of people don't even notice it when they come in. Yeah, so as you come into the park, it's in a completely separate area of Reinhardt Park. It's not connected to the waterway. It's about 9,000 square feet of area, maybe 7,500, I can't remember, somewhere around there of square footage in that area, and it's fed through our irrigation and water that comes in through the city. So it's a separate pond from the actual pond. If you pull in off of Lincoln Road, turn to go through the park like you're going to the River Vista site, the first little parking spots you get to there, the fly fishing pond is right off that pathway that takes you down to the river.
Wow, thank you. So that big pond won't be touched?
No.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, so I don't think I realized the fly fishing pond back there. Okay, and then it sounds like maybe quite an expense to repurpose that. And would there be more maintenance costs ongoing with the natural garden? And
In general, maintenance costs on playgrounds, you're freshening up surfacing, which we already budget for whatever type of surfacing we use, and then a lot of it's staff time and then replacement parts. Most of the parts get warranted for several years, depending on which provider you go with and what type of parts. You're looking, upwards of 20 years useful life cycle of most playground components. So there would be an increase in cost and staff time and everything like that, but anything we use to repurpose this area would probably also be an increase in cost, staff time, and everything. And as far as the actual development cost, we would bring those back to council after we had an idea what the community wanted.
Rob?
So just, you mentioned the pump track is proposed at Beacon Hill Park. We're talking about the same park that's been proposed for 20 years that's never going to be built? Is that the park we're talking about? That Beacon Hill Park?
Yes, that would be Beacon Hill Park. And
Okay.
as far as development of that park, I think at this point, we're waiting to see what council has to say. Again, it's been off and on for development for several years now. I think you guys have it scheduled for March to give further direction on that. But when we went through the initial planning phase for Beacon Hill, went through the planning commission, went through all the designs and community surveys, the park itself that was approved to be built included a pump track.
Okay, thank you.
Which in that location would be much better because it would drive people to come off of I-5.
Indra?
I guess what this is, I don't know if the question would be for you or Aaron, but the money, the costs used to repurpose this, I mean, because it's fine as is, no one might use it, but people walk by it, it's very pretty back there. What other uses could the money be going to? Anything that we're working on now, looking for funds for, that this money could go to?
Is there a specific LB project that you're considering that this would come from?
So we've got a couple of LB projects, one of which is included as large park development. I need to check with the finance director to see if the tourism dollars would go towards supporting this. Usually for big maintenance items and new amenities to Reinhardt Park, that's one of the parks that's been established as being potentially eligible for tourism dollars. Additionally, when we get cost estimates back for different playground things, the city can look at going out for one of the Oregon State Parks grants, which we've been really successful for in the past, and then it's only a 50% match to us to be able to do that. But the first spot I'd look for is potential use of tourism dollars for this, since it is Reinhardt Volunteer Park. After that, then it would be kind of one of those things, one of the things that kind of helps dictate what city councils decide to spend capital dollars on is community surveys and what people in community are asking for. So oftentimes, like strategic planning is where ideas like this have came up, or a Whitewater Park or things like that, that all of a sudden we're starting to invest more capital and ideas in if we don't have a different string to pull from. If there weren't any other things, whether it was park SDCs or something like that, then it would need to come from potentially the general fund, which is all up to council discretion.
So the pump, what's it called?
Pump track?
The pump track, would that be something these dollars could go to?
Potentially,
Two
again,
that
we'd need
haven't
to.
been built in so long?
Yeah, so it depends on where we're looking at putting it. If we were putting one at Beacon Hill, I would generally, what I like to do is try to convince the finance director that, they really should qualify, and he has laws that he has to worry about. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if we're doing it at Beacon Hill, I think you could potentially use it because it'd be similar to like Redmond's pump track, which is right off the side of the highway there. And what it is it's not a feature that people are actively going to be traveling to Grants Pass because Grants Pass has a pump track. It is the type of feature that draws people off the highway as they're traveling from A to B. You can imagine camping and you're taking all sorts of bikes with you to go camping and you're looking for a spot to stop. You see a pump track there and you're getting off the freeway exit. So it would be something that could support that side of tourism, is just to draw people down. In our survey results with the information In the comments, you'll notice many people have talked about how they're going over to Crescent City to use their pump tracks. That's usually in association with camping or something else they're doing, but it allows them to go there and it provides them staying longer, which also means that they're more likely to spend money in our local restaurants, maybe stay the night, things like that, gas and everything else like that. A place like Reinhardt Volunteer Park, I would probably, again, since it is one of our large parks that's usually eligible to tourism dollars, if that was the route council wanted to go, I would make the same type of argument for it that I would for the natural playground. It's just Reinhardt Park for like a pump track. It's further away from I-5, so it becomes more of a burden for attracting tourists down to that location.
Okay, I just asked because people like the pump track, and if we're taking dollars we could use for that, that more people would want, maybe that would be a better priority. That's the only reason I asked.
It's a recommendation from the Parks Advisory Committee. City Council is more than willing or welcome to, say we'd rather go this way or that way type of a thing. Yeah.
Kathleen?
I see here that the natural playground has most of the highest responses in the first three categories. I'd just like to make a motion to choose the natural playground.
And a second. Oh, and I do see a second from Rob. Or did you have, or a comment? Okay. All right, we'll start with Joel.
So I wanted to discuss.
Oh, you did, okay, go ahead.
So I just have to say that what I saw in Klamath, I was totally jazzed up about when I saw it. And I wasn't there with my kids or grandkids or anything like that, but it was really impressive. They had a small, and it was basically for probably 5 to 13-year-olds, but it had a small climbing wall, one that's just high enough to be a challenge, but probably won't break any arms when you fall off, or not too many arms. They also had a small zip line, same thing. It was just big enough for kids of that age to really enjoy and not really be dangerous. There was balancing stumps and all kinds of different other things. And I was pretty blown away. I was really impressed, and I think that location will be great in that park for something like that. I think a pump track is really good, but I think a pump track can pretty much go anywhere or almost anywhere. But I think that location, a natural playground, would be fantastic.
All right, we'll start with Joel.
So I'm the liaison to the Parks Committee, and they do a great job. They discuss things very thoroughly. They have a lot of bike enthusiasts that are members, Dollar Mountain and the B Street jumps, and they discussed the bicycle track down there versus the natural playground, and it was, I think it was unanimous to go with the natural playground and that it fit in with the environment. And so I'll be voting yes in supporting what they're recommending.
Rick, did you? Okay, all right, so we will begin a roll call. So it is a motion to have the Parks Department explore different designs for a natural playground to replace the fly fishing pond area in Reinhardt Volunteer Park. And so we'll start with Joel.
Yes.
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 Yes. And so it's unanimous and staff has direction? Thank you. All right, okay. And so next up on our agenda is agenda review that also includes the business meeting portion that's on the agenda and the calendar that's on the agenda. So, Rob?
Yeah, I'd like to, I don't know if we could do it Wednesday night. Well, I don't know if council wants to do it at all, but Wednesday night, maybe a short executive session to give council an update on the HR position, whether that's filled, whether it's not filled, the status of it, what it takes to move forward. But it's probably an executive session discussion at this point, and it'll probably be brief, but I'd like to be updated on it. If other councilors want to hear it, maybe they can say so.
Yeah. We could potentially do that, or maybe do a slight confidential memo to you also on the status of that, whichever council would prefer.
Well, the memo might, invoke some questions, so there might be back and forth needed. So that, to me, it just would make more sense to be in a short executive session.
Are there other counselors who would be, other counselors that would be interested in this executive session? I see Rick, and I also would be interested in that, so that's 3. Okay, all right. Any other agenda items? Rick and then Kathleen?
On Friday, the task force met on the non-bargaining unit, and we have a recommendation we would like to forward to the city council. We would, as a committee, we would like our information not to sit out there, but to proceed as soon as possible, and didn't know if the council would like to entertain a special meeting or schedule an extra workshop, or what they would like to consider. Thank you.
How much time do you think we would need for this? Because you're saying a special meeting, I mean, does it need to be a day or an hour?
I think an hour should cover it. Maybe 2 hours. Okay.
The task force meeting went 2 hours, so I would estimate that the same. There would be less information discussed potentially, but 2 hours would probably be a reasonable assumption.
So a special, about what time frame were you thinking, Rick? Within the next week, 2 weeks, or?
Well, one possibility would be again next Monday.
So is
But-
there any interest in a special workshop next Monday? It would take 2 hours, we'll say, and then because it is an extra, maybe people add 2 hours. If it was going to go longer, people could feel free to exit.
I won't be here, but I can call in remotely.
Okay. So are you saying that, Joel, you'd be interested then in that?
I'd prefer to be here in person, but I can make it work. You want me to say it again?
So-
Yeah, make sure to
okay.
use your mic when you're talking,
Okay.
Counselor.
I'd prefer to be here in person, but I can make remote work if I'm the only one.
Rob?
So do we, I'm looking at the agenda here, Paige, do we not have a workshop on the 19th?
That's a holiday, so we could potentially have it on the Tuesday.
So it wouldn't be next Monday, it would be next Tuesday.
Oh, the following Tuesday, it'd be the following Tuesday. Be 2 weeks from
The 20th.
tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow? Yeah.
2 weeks from tomorrow. What is that date?
It'd be the 20th.
Oh, the 20th? Okay, and it's a Tuesday at 11:45. All right, I have 2 counselors. Do I have other counselor? 3 counsel 4. All right, so next Tuesday, the 20th, at 11:45. I mean, not next Tuesday, but on the 20th.
Yes.
Yes, a special meeting for the non-bargaining task force. Okay, other agenda items? I think Kathleen?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to start on the consent agenda A,
Can you read that one?
resolution designating the city manager as a budget officer according to ORS.
All right, okay. We're going to start that item?
Certainly.
Okay. Other agenda items? Eric?
Can we do something regarding the RFI or the Elk Island as far as getting like an update on where we are with everything, how everything's coming along, status update?
That will be coming soon. One of the provisions of the grant agreement is a monthly report. He needs to respond to me, and I'm sending him the questions today to get back.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Kathleen?
I read a really interesting article, and I think it would be good to have a workshop on this. It's about regulating, how should I say, mandates and taxes It's about cutting red tape that strangles small businesses, repealing taxes that punish work and investment, restoring fairness by recognizing that small businesses aren't the same as multinational corporations. Now, maybe this is a bigger thing than our city, but the whole article, but I think there's things in there that could pertain to our city, and maybe that's what the task force is doing with the codes. But, yeah, what am I exactly asking? I think some path forward in looking at our regulations and making sure that they're fair.
For small businesses specifically?
Yeah, for small businesses.
Is the task force that is meeting on the
Code.
general, is it the code task force?
That's,
Would that be something they
the
would,
code task force will be different. That's for development
okay.
code. The
Okay,
task force
right.
that's being created, that Nicholas, Counselor, suggested that you'll be adopting could dive into some of those things. If you're talking about
okay.
regulations or things that are prohibiting growth within the business sector, those things should come up during that discussion, during that task force.
okay, maybe I'll share this with Indra then.
Other items? All right, I am looking for a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to leave? Okay, Rick.
Like to make a
And I have a
motion?
second. All those in favor of adjourning, thumbs up. With one.
What's the
quick-
business meeting?
Sorry, Eric.
What's
go
the
ahead.
business meeting? Did we already do that one?
Well, it was part of, yeah, I thought that was different too, but I asked Aaron, and he said the business meeting and the calendar were both a part of agenda review.
So to respond to that during our agenda setting meeting, the mayor was wanting to call out just the business meeting and then go on to the rest of the calendar, just to make sure we're clear that council's got all the information they need to make an informed decision for the business meeting itself. And so it was just a special call out on the upcoming business meeting.
Monday night, Wednesday night?
Indra?
Thank you, staff, for the Christmas, New Year little mugs here. Thank you very much.
Oh, I had one more question. Is it, am I clear that we're having a strategic planning meeting on the 16th?
Yes, strategic planning is scheduled for the 15th and the 16th.
Oh, 15th and 16th, all day?
It's all day on the 15th, and we're scheduled for a half day on the 16th.
Oh, gosh, I wonder why I only saw it on the calendar as the 16th. Okay. And was there any pre-preparation that we need for that?
There was a survey sent out to the city council and to the X team with regards to the training session on the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And those results will be provided during the training
Okay, I did have a
session.
question about that. You specified that there was one team for the X team and one survey for the council mayor.
Yes.
I only saw one survey when I went on there.
They're individual. When we're doing the survey, when you're taking the survey and it's asking questions about your team and how your team works together, think of your team as the council. And then the X team is thinking of their team as the X team.
Okay, so it's just one survey.
Just one survey.
Okay, thank you.
All right, a thumbs up for everyone who wants to adjourn. Okay, I think we are adjourned. Thank you.